of my guests, and trainers Dan Skelton and Sam Thomas, who are very much the heroes of the hour. But my first guest is somebody who has had more than her fair share of adversity during the course of the last year. Not only has she had to buy her business out from her ex-husband and ex-business partner Nick, she's also had to endure her son Chester spending a significant amount of time in intensive care after suffering a horrific fall in September. Pleasingly, he is on his way to recovery as well, and the yard is now starting to turn a corner. She is a pioneer, not from a racing background, is fiercely determined to do well, not just for herself, but for her owners and her family. I'm delighted to welcome her from her base in Devon. She joins me in our studios in Ealing. Jane Williams, good morning.
Good morning, Nick.
It is fair to say you have had quite a year, and not one that anyone would wish on their worst enemy, really.
No, we sort of got over what we thought was the financial problems of Nick moving to France, and I wanted to continue with the business. We'd been there for 20 years at Culver Hill, and it seemed a shame for it to just come to an end. So I managed to sort that out and get the finances in place to go forward. Got to the beginning of this season and thought we were flying. Did an interview at one point saying I was really bullish about this season. I so wish I hadn't said that. And then sort of the world came rather crashing down when Chester was badly injured, and also there were some other family tragedies that is not for me to talk about, which made it very difficult for the rest of the season. And then the horses sort of fell in a bit of a hole as well, so we got to the end of this year. Had another family tragedy over Christmas, and I was very glad that we got to 2023. Horses started on the 1st of January in Rem 1 at Exeter, and we just seem to have turned the corner, and hopefully we've had some good results recently. Horses they look fabulous, and they're running well, so I think we're back on track.
First question everybody will want to know is, how is Chester? Because it was a very, very serious head injury. People were worried for his life initially.
Yes, it was, well, that was, worst 20 minutes of my life when I thought he wasn't there anymore. He is recovering. He's a real fighter, and he's fighting his way back. He's doing, he's fabulous, and Felicita's partner helps him a lot, looks after him very well. And he is doing a lot of physiotherapy. He's got fantastic help from the NHS in North Devon, and he's doing. He films himself doing this physiotherapy, which he sends out to all our owners groups, and they are so enthusiastic and so supportive of him. And actually, it was interesting that he didn't think anybody cared. And whenever I go racing, I mean, everybody asks me. People in the weighing room, journalists. Race goers, they all will stop, and I relay this to him, and he was really sort of overwhelmed, I think, that actually people cared so much about him. And they just do. I think they realise that we're in a risky business, and every so often somebody takes a nasty slap, and they are very supportive and are wishing him the best. And I think that has given him a bit of impetus to really fight back, and he's doing very well. And actually, he does a lot of writing now. He does. He's an absolute sort of anorak when it comes to form, which is why I don't ever know much about it, because I don't need to, because he knows everything. So he does a lot of sort of previews for our horses and reviews and what have you, which also go out on these various WhatsApp groups. So it's keeping him motivated, but it gives him something. Jenny loves it, so that's been great.
He's a very passionate, smart guy, isn't he? Very switched on guy. I've always remembered he'd always be corresponding with me about various points of form, and we tried to get him on the show a few times, but obviously he was busy helping you.
He was always saying, because I said to him, I'm coming on this show, and he said, I was going to come on there, but I was away racing.
You beat him to it.
I beat him to it, which is a bit of a surprise. And he just was, very, very passionate about racing. He has very, very strong views about lots of, he not only doesn't know about the form, but he's got strong views about the rules on. I mean, he wrote a long thing about rules on novice chasers one year and sent it off. I think it was actually published in the Racing Post. So he's very much up to speed with the rules and has a view on them. So yes, certainly always loved racing and will always be in the game. Yes.
And so the idea was, and I guess the idea now still is, that you and he will push the business forward.
Well, I think so.
As one.
Yes, I think so. I mean, I haven't held the licence in my own name for a long time, although I've trained for a long time. And the idea was that we were going to have a joint licence going forward. I don't know how he feels about that. That's not something to talk about at the moment. We'll just see how we go, really.
OK, and the main thing is that he is moving in the right direction.
He is.
Which must override everything. When you get up out of bed, as you do every morning at 4:30, 5 o'clock, the knowledge that he's still there must underpin everything you do.
Yeah, it is, because it's always been a family business. We've always been a strong team, he and I, and I feel that I want him to it to be his in the long term, and he'll be very good at it.
Take me back to where racehorse training started, because you are not steeped in the game.
Well, it's a bit of an odd one, because actually I was brought up, I never learned to ride because I was sort of tied onto a basket saddle when I was tiny, and I could always ride. My mother bred horses, and then so I always rode. But then I ended up training as a chartered accountant and didn't do anything with racing until Nick went 25 years ago, bought a couple of yearlings, and we got them home and thought...
This is Nick who you were married to at the time?
Yeah. And he wanted to
Or were you married at the time?
I think we weren't married at the time, but anyway, we did get married in the end. But he wanted to train racehorses, and so we bought some yearlings, a couple of yearlings from Newmarket, and got them home and thought... I had to get a book, actually, to work out... I had no idea what to do with them. So 27 years ago, I didn't know anything about training racehorses at all. Then we bought Carjo Foal from Newmarket, who was our actually first winner with Richard Johnson. And we just, I mean, really, it's a sort of hobby gone wrong, because we train racehorses for ourselves, and we did a bit of dealing in the early days, and we were quite successful at it, and like one thing after another. And then in the end, I think Nick started with a permit, actually. Then we got a licence. Then we bought a derelict farm on the other side of the village 20 years ago, and have turned it from a derelict dairy farm into, well, I think a quite smart racing yard with lots of sort of old-fashioned wooden timber boxes. And then 10 years ago, we sold the accountancy practice and just trained horses full-time. So that's so yes, it's been I've never worked in racing, so it has been a bit of an uphill struggle to learn all the rules and regulations and how to do it. But we got there in the end.
But you have learned, and you've been incredibly successful as well. You must have an innate sense of horsemanship.
I think it's stockmanship, isn't it? I mean, I was brought up for farming, so I understand animals, and I love animals, and I love horses. I think we're probably based... I mean, our system is slightly different than anybody else's, but I suppose because we sort of invented it ourselves. I love buying young horses. I think you learn so much more about them. We're lucky, we've got 100 acres, or 200 acres actually, I think. So we've got plenty of space. So we buy young horses. And actually, at the time, we couldn't afford to buy anything other than young horses. That hence starting there. So we buy yearlings, and that's sort of a business model that has continued to now. And then we find the pedigrees that we like. We have a definite, there's now Chester and myself that have a definite rule about how we buy horses, buy youngsters, and you learn so much about them. What's
your rule? What do you go by?
Oh, it's very much more about dam lines. It's about, you're very much looking at the dam line. You're looking for horses, dams that have won races, and a sort of a depth of pedigree. So, which I think it improves our strike rate overall. And also, we're looking for horses that are not for now, but are for trying to buy sort of staying chasers, really, or staying horses. So something that will improve from 3 to 6. And carry on improving, which most of our horses do. So yeah, we got definite rules about what we buy. So when we go to the sales, we don't mark off very many, because very few actually fit the criteria that we want. And it's very much about the sire, dam sire, and second dam sire. It's a sort of, you look at a page and you can just see what you need. And we like to buy from winning dams or dams of breadwinners. But equally, we don't have a very large budget, so you have to be, we have to be a bit clever about it. So we're still buying yearlings. It's getting a bit harder at the moment because the sales are strong.
It's interesting, this, because some people will sit in that seat and tell me that they will compromise on pedigree to get a nice individual, whereas you won't compromise on pedigree, but you will try and get horses in your yard earlier, so you're not having to pay money for proven stock.
I don't have the owners that can buy form horses, or really even sort of 3-year-olds. We're having to buy, and actually it suits me because we're buying youngsters. We break them in ourselves. Mm-hmm. We've had them. It's a bit like training flat horses, and actually we've had an amazing season with our juveniles this year. But yeah, we bought them as yearlings or maybe 2-year-olds, and we know them well. We know we know how to train them. We know when to push them, when to lay off them, when to give them a bit more time. We know which ones are precocious, which ones are slower. You could do all of that sort of stuff if you buy them when they're young. So we have a big advantage, but then we have to, people have to wait.
And it's obviously a system that worked really well. You and Nick were accountants together,
yes,
and you were training together. What kind of advantage did it give you, having that more business-like mindset to apply to training? I
think that's a very interesting point. I think you do have to be conscious of the business side of things. For example, I always like to see how much our earnings per run are. I mean, we're just under 2,000 per run at the moment. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, we do need to be able to put money back to owners, really. And, it's important where you are on the table. But obviously, when you only train, I think we've got 30 horses in at the moment that could run. When you only train small numbers, we're never going to get to the top 20 very easily. So, but if you look at the earnings per run of these horses, and the syndicates we run, we tend to have dividends being paid back to owners every year. Mm-hmm. I think that helps. I think that keeps people interested. I think it keeps people in the game. And I think we do have to. We know we don't have targets and whatever, but we're conscious that we have to earn. Horses have to earn, and give something back to their owners, really.
But it's all very well building up a strong, robust business. When you were forced to take the reins entirely yourself, it's a slightly different proposition. Just explain how it all unfolded in the last few years, because some people might not quite realise that you were together as a couple, then you weren't together as a couple, but you were still business partners, and now you're not.
Yeah. It was a mess and a muddle, and
but one that weirdly worked for a while.
Yeah, it did really. It did. I suppose we've been in business for 30. Nick and I have been in business for 30 years. So, and actually, it was a family business, and like so many businesses, if we couldn't stop unless we sold the business. We couldn't go our separate ways unless we sold the business, and so we just carried on training horses because actually that's what we wanted to do. Mm-hmm. We were good at it, and it paid and a living, and we kept going. But more recently, Nick decided he wanted to retire to France, which he has done, and then I had to make the decision as to whether to push on myself or give up, and I didn't want to, because actually we'd taken a property that was a right old mess and built something what we think is quite nice, and I didn't want to have that just wasted, really. And I wanted it for my family in the future, so I had to buy him out. I'd always train the horses. I always trained the horses for 20 years. I trained them. Mm-hmm. So that part's easy. The business bit is not quite so easy. And
was that the dynamic at the time? You were kind of the hands-on trainer?
Yes.
Always with the hands-on trainer?
Always.
And he did more of the kind of entries, yes, and admin, that kind of thing?
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly how it worked. I mean, I think in any partnership, if two people do bring the same thing to the party, then one of them's redundant, aren't they? So you need to, a team of people that all do bring different skills, which is very much what we've got now. Everybody, I've been lucky enough to surround myself by very, very good people. I've got, a good team in the yard, fabulous team in the yard. I've got family that are very skilled in certain things. I've got owners that bring and are very helpful and bring a lot to the party as well. So if you surround yourself by good people, you can be successful, can't you? So that's what we've done. Obviously, financially, it's been a bit of a struggle because obviously I had to buy Nick out.
And given the strength of the business and this beautiful place that you built up, that's not going to come without a significant cost.
No. And then interest rates started rising last year, so yeah, this summer's going to be quite fun when there aren't any training fees coming in. But yeah, we'll keep going. We'll survive it. And actually, the business is growing at the moment. We've got a few orders and a few horses being sold, and yeah, it feels very positive again.
It's interesting, people, when they talk about moving and moving on, and often talk about properties, and they can't bear to leave somewhere, and people say, well, it's only bricks and mortar, it's about the people you put in it. But for you, those two things are intertwined, aren't they?
Yeah. My children were brought up there. And actually, they had to pay quite a price, because it wasn't very easy to build a place like that. And it's been a financial struggle for a long time. And funny enough, I thought I'd just got out of it when Nick dropped the bombshell that he was going. I thought we'd got onto an even keel, but anyway, we just keep pushing forward. You've just got to be positive, haven't you?
And as a family, I said you were a pioneer because you've done it your way and you've done it differently. And I think you might inspire people who think, I could do that, but I don't have the background in the sport. What would you say to them?
Yeah, well, I suppose we're lucky that we funded the business in the early days on the back of an accountancy practice. But yeah, definitely think anybody can learn how to do it. I spent a lot of time listening to people, trying to work out how to, the tricks of the trade and what have you. But I think anybody, if you've got a dream, you've got to try and live it, haven't you?
But you must be a good judge of who to listen to and who not to listen to.
Well, I suppose I've been in business a long time, so yeah. I'm very lucky, but I have got good people around me, and always have. And I do love horses, and I think, we've got horses that are really special, and I think it's worked because I only sell horses that I believe in, and that gives you your owners. I think if I think a horse hasn't got a future, I wouldn't want to sell it really. I would sooner keep it, and I do, and find homes for them. And I think people are becoming more conscious of the welfare issues with racing as well, and very much that's sort of one of our angles. I mean, we had a horse called Fastbuck who was he'd done the rounds and what have you, and we bought him second hand. That was Chester actually who bought him. He'd lost his way. And he bought him from the sales, not expensively, and he had completely lost his way. But what we're doing at home is quite different. We're very much caring for the welfare of horses, and we just had to find the key for this horse. And then he won at Lingfield the other day, and just romped home. And it was just lovely. It was a very satisfying feeling to have taken a horse that had lost his way and was sort of in the doldrums, and now he's a really happy horse, and the owners were thrilled about it, and he will never be sold again. He will be retired. And for example, Maljamar, who was one of my first good horses, is still in Cornwall in a retirement home, having the time of his life. So I think that's how I feel about racing. It's not just about racing; it's about the horses and their lives and the quality of their lives as well.
So actually, even though this is very interesting to me, because even though you can approach it in a business-minded way, and you completely understand the figures more than most trainers do, you still feel a strong sense of responsibility to the animal, and you don't believe that those two concepts are mutually exclusive. You can be a good business person, but you can look after the animals as well.
Absolutely. I think that is very... I think probably given our setup, I think we've got 33 or something at the moment, we've got about 40-something boxes, so we could probably never train 100 horses. I think because, we do stuff like the horses are turned out every day and we buy a yearling, so we need, it's just a different way of doing it, and we probably would never get to the... But it is a profitable business, and... it's successful, and I think the horses have a nice time. I think we've had certain times. I've got a lot of horses that have retired that I own myself. They're out on loan to places, or they go off to be a hunt horse. But I keep the ownership of them. So I definitely think you can do the both. Definitely think you can.
Doing what you're doing takes a force of personality as well to make sure you keep the whole enterprise together. We've talked quite a bit about Chester. and his road to recovery. We haven't mentioned Lizzy, your daughter, Lizzy Kelly, who a lot of people will be familiar with, and she's been on this programme and done a lot of television work since she stopped her riding career, which was a very successful one. You passionately supported her as well.
I did. I think she was one of the first of the, shall I say, the English girl jockeys. I think she was, because we'd got the superstar ladies in Ireland, but she was one of the first.
So she was one of the first of the newer generation of female professionals here.
Yes,
yeah, definitely.
I think she was, and it was tough. It was tough with in the yard, and I never thought that anybody should, I've always had a sort of egalitarian attitude to life, and I never thought that girls should be held back at all as jockeys. And actually, in fairness, she was the one that was riding horses before school. She was the one that was riding difficult horses. She was the one that was riding breakers for me. I mean, when she was tiny, we were doing breakers. We learnt to do breakers together when she was a tot and a youngster, and I was she was the one that sort of back then when she was brave as a lion and very much part of, and I was vehemently supported her. And actually, she paid me back dividends. And we've had, I noticed her picture of on her, Facebook or whatever, is of her and Tea for Two. I mean, those were great days and great achievements.
I mean, Tea for Two won a Grade 1 novice chase at Kempton, what was then the Feltham, now the Quarto Star. He won the bowl at Aintree as well.
Amazing.
She launched him into the last fence as though her life depended on it. How, as a mother and a trainer, how special a moment was this for you?
Oh, beating Q Card.
Yeah.
And it was funny because he was only hunting round that day.
Did you not go there with any great expectations?
No. I said to her, look, because we'd had a mishap in the Gold Cup, and I mean, that was a horrendous fall. We never did understand why he did it. I think he saw the crowd and just got confused, startled.
He came up for her there, didn't he?
He only went along with his tongue hanging out. Yeah, that is a big picture that we've got at home. I was in the car park actually.
Why?
I never watched, because I never watched racing.
Ever?
No, very rarely. Yeah, that. So I was coming down when they were coming up. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, that was a great achievement, wasn't it? Yeah. You
backed her, you supported her, you were a brilliant support, and all through those years. But you say you found it very hard to watch. You must have been putting yourself through hell at the same time.
I think a lot of it is I don't watch it because I'm frightened of letting people down. So when if a horse has an accident, you slightly feel, what could I have done differently? Perhaps I didn't school it enough. Perhaps I schooled it too much. Perhaps I got the wrong trip. Perhaps I shouldn't have been here today. I spend a lot of time sort of beating myself up over when things go wrong. Something I really need to stop doing. But so yeah, I don't watch it because I just find it too stressful. And actually, the children. Every jockey has horrible accidents. Paige is here today, and people do have the mishaps all the time. And I'm not really worried about that at the races. We ended up having a horrible accident, and it was at schooling at home, not even on the racecourse. But you just want to do well for other people, don't you? You just want the horses to do well for the owners or the jockeys or whatever. But that was a great day. Yeah.
When he's mainly your horse running in your colours, then I suppose you have slightly fewer people to answer to. Yeah. How are you finding adapting to more owners?
I think I take the pressure off myself by only selling horses that I think have got chances. I had a bumper horse the other day, which was third, which ran in my colours. It's a really nice horse. I really like it, and I believe in that horse. I think that is going to go on to be a good horse. Therefore, I'm happy that I just couldn't live with myself if I sold a horse that I thought had got some sort of problem somewhere. I just reduce my stress by trying to do, keeping nice horses. And we had one that we just thought wasn't particularly good, and we tried him a couple of times and he wasn't. And he's a very happy hacker for somebody. An old lady, and he's absolutely, she loves him to bits and sends me a Christmas card every year. That's just It's better for the horse, better for the owners, better for me. Just works better that way.
And then you can sleep and you can enjoy
Yes.
doing what you're doing.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the team that you've got around you at the moment that you've built, because it's quite an impressive one.
Yeah, well, obviously we very much relied on family, but of course when we had the various mishaps this year, Chester and Fliss are not in the yard, and of course Nick is not in the yard anymore, and Lizzy's got her own business now, doing all sorts of things that she does. So
in racing, she's
in racing,
pre-training, buying and selling all sorts.
Yeah, definitely. She's, all my family are in racing and love it, and will always be in racing. I mean, that's fantastic. But I have got very good staff at home, and I've got a new head lad, Barry Murphy, whose father was a famous trainer, Ferdy, and has had 40 years of experience, which is much more experience than I've got. And is a really good backstop for me in the yard. Obviously, Chester is a stable jockey until he decides he isn't, but I've had to look for other jockeys who would fit in with my business model, really. It's not always about today. Horses are important. We've got to look after them. And I've got David Noonan as our main rider now, and he is just fantastic. I mean, he comes in every week, works very hard, is very much part of the team. I get good feedback from him. I can ask him about race plans and this sort of stuff. And he's, yesterday, for example, things didn't go at all as planned, and he just stopped. Mm. He just does the right thing by the horse. He looks after the horses, which is what they've got to do. And I also have a really good, strong team of riders in the yard that have been with me a long time, who all, by the way, did more hours as soon as Chester was injured. I did notice this, and I thank them for it, that, everybody that was, perhaps did, 2 or 3 days, all of a sudden was doing 4 or 5 days. Mm-hmm. Everybody pulled together. And, farriers and vets that have all said to me, whatever we can do to help, we will, and everybody has pulled together, and you can see the results. And
even though it's been a really awful time for you all, and you're just starting to feel your way through it, though these experiences never go.
No, they don't.
Do you think now that you're the master of your own destiny to a certain extent, and you've bought the business, that you can create an even happier environment at your stable in time?
I think any situation, anybody who's been through divorces and whatever will know it's never very easy or very happy. And now I am on my own, and we have got a strong team, and I am very much master of my own destiny. All our systems are very robust. Mm-hmm. We have systems that are very robust.
I can imagine.
We know exactly. It's quite regimented. The structure of the business structure is regimented. The day-to-day structure is regimented. That's for the safety of the horses and for the staff as well. To try and run a happy and successful yard and business.
And as I say, you never turn a corner, you never turn a page, because the things that have happened to you are part of what make you. Are you somebody, because of your sort of natural forward-looking personality, who thinks that these things can make you stronger?
I think you have to, because if you didn't, I think there have been some days that have been extremely difficult, and you do wonder what you're doing and whether you should be doing it. But at the end of the day, I'm not that old. I've got a long, hopefully a few years left. And I've got responsibility to my horses and my owners and my staff to keep going and do it as well as possible.
And we started this conversation with you really saying that what informs you doing this is the fact that you absolutely love animals.
Oh, I do. I love them. I think I think what we provide in racing is, as you touched on, I think we're proving that you can be trained successful racehorses and them to have a happy life afterwards if it works out that way, and to have a happy life whilst they're racehorses and be successful. We're not a very big yard, and we're lucky to have the land that we've got that not everybody has. We can do lots of different things. We do an awful lot of field work. We do a lot of show jumping. We do all sorts of weird things. And I mean, we have invested heavily in the business. We've just put in a new all-weather wax sand round gallop because
you joined the Wexford Sand Revolution.
Well, we had to because we do a lot of youngsters with breaking in, what have you. We work during we do a lot of field work, and actually the fields, because of the change in the weather patterns, the ground has got a lot quicker, and you can't keep cantering on sort of grassland all the time. So we've put that in, and actually it saved us in that when we had the frost the other day. So we had 9 days of -5 or below. So we were able to use it for that, kept all the horses ticking over. So no, we're very much investing in the future. That was quite a big investment. And putting in, I mean, we don't have many facilities like horse walkers and things like that, but we have a fabulous arena, lots of show jumps, every field's got different jumps in it. So we're always off doing different things. So we've got Exmoor not far away. So we go up there and do a bit sort of cantering around on the moors. So yeah, horses have got a nice varied life. And actually it does mean that when they do retire, they could go off and do a simple dressage test or cross country or something like that. So they're quite skilled, and I think it just keeps the horses, happy and interested in their jobs. Really.
If you could go back and give yourself 30 years ago any advice, what would it be?
Oh, start it sooner. Start trading sooner.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I'd done it. I wish I'd started. I wish I'd had the opportunity, but I didn't. I would spent 20 plus years as a chartered accountant. So, and we did the two together for 10 years, I think. So we were still accountants. I did 2 jobs. There was a period where we were doing that and sort of trading horses. Not very many, of course, but yes, I'd love to have done more.
But it's lovely in a way, because you ask a lot of people that question, they say, "Oh, do something else,"
Well, I did something else.
Exactly.
So when my children were in their teens and their 20s, riding and whatever, I was studying to be a chartered accountant. So that was, it's a different background. So I didn't have that time, and I envy them the opportunities that they've had that perhaps I didn't. But so no, I wish, if I could go back, I wish I did it sooner.
And is there anything in terms of the professional life now that really drives you on? We talked a lot about family and keeping the yard successful and keeping the business robust and really making what you've got. Professionally, in terms of goals, do you set yourself targets and races that you'd like to win, or not so much?
Oh yeah, definitely. I love racing in France. I mean, a few years ago, I think I did 24 trips to France one year. We used to do a lot, but of course with Brexit and COVID, that put a I love cross country. I absolutely love cross country racing. That is what really fires me. And I've been to Murano and Pardubici, and I've done all of the cross country courses with Maljamar and horses like that. And I'd love to have the opportunity to go back and do more of that.
So more exploring. But first and foremost, we're very happy that the business is going well. We're even happier that Chester is on his way. And we're all very pleased that you were able to make it into the studio this morning. For the moment, Jane Williamson, you're staying with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We'll be back after this.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.